Okay. Good morning all. So welcome you all for Advanced Prelims Enrichment course for Prelims 2026. So assuming most of you, obviously if you are attending this classes, that means most of the GS subjects, at least basics, you would have been already completed. And how many of you have already given at least like 1 or 2 prelims? How many? Okay, fine. So I think you had cleared prelims last time or no? Okay, so what is your score? This time? Okay, then 70s, 78, okay. Then, yeah, who else are given? 79. You had cleared prelims, right? That's time here. Okay. This time, I think even prelims you are getting around 90s, 92. Okay. Problem was with CSAT. Okay, so whoever had given at least 1 or 2 prelims, what do you guys found out? Like, let's say you will have your own analysis, right? Like maybe this I should have done better, maybe revision, maybe test, maybe whatever. So many factors will be there. So what did you guys feel? What went wrong or what you could have done better? Really? Please sit and talk. What do you think you could have done better? Why do you think you could not cross that whatever 90 marks, 90 cutoff or something? Revision issue, consolidation, because you think, in other words, it means you did not have all the notes at one place. Okay. Then mock test. Mock test, you had attempted sufficient mock test. Okay. On an average, how many marks were you getting in the mock test? 80s to 90s then. Okay. CSAT, you were in the safe zone or even CSAT was a little problem? Mayur, what do you think?
So this time I feel like towards, like closer to prelims, I got really
panicked. Especially like CSAT or both?
Both.
Okay, please come. Okay, any others? How many did you feel like, sir, because the moment you go through prelims, then the common, this pattern the students will identify is that almost like 40, 50 questions at least will be from those areas where you feel like I have no idea at all. So based on whatever the information that you have there, obviously you have to see and then try to guess and eliminate, okay, maybe this is possible, maybe this is not possible. So based on those things only you have to eliminate a lot of ones. So then obviously multiple times everybody would have told, but that point will always remain the same. So number of basic questions will determine, the range of the cutoff. If number of basic questions are in 40s, 40 to 50, 45, 47, something on those range, cutoff will automatically cross 90s. It will be 95 to 95 to 100, that kind of a range. If the number of basic questions come down to 30 to 40, automatically your cutoff will come down to 85 to 90 or 80 to 85. Again, of course, it depends on, so how difficult is your CSAT paper. If CSAT becomes very difficult, +5, in other words, -5 you have to make it. If CSAT is on average, okay, fine. So, if you have a basic hold and then if you are able to manage time properly there and you can easily clear that, that means automatically 40 to 50 is the number of basic questions in GS, cutoff is in 90s. 30 to 40 is the basic number of questions, basic conceptual clarity questions in GS, that means cutoff is in 80 to 90. Understood? Or if, like, let's say for example, if you recall 21, 22, if you go through PYQs, you will understand that 21, 22, probably 23 also, I am not sure. So 23 CSAT was very difficult. So based on that, cutoff came down, but 21 to 23 number of basic questions were in 25 to 30 range. That is the reason if you go and look at the cutoffs, it is somewhere in 78, 79. If you recall those cutoffs, it is in that range. So that's, in other words, the core point is what? You have to be very, very strong in your basic conceptual questions. If you miss out on those basic conceptual questions, and if you try to bet on current affairs, if you try to bet on so many other aspects, so if things go in your favor, you are lucky. Because those questions, uncertainty is very, very high. There is no clear-cut source where they ask the questions from. And for those who have followed current affairs, in other words, newspapers, especially current affairs means not the magazines I am not talking about. If you have read newspapers regularly for at least 1.5 years, and ideally if you had made your own notes, that means in those current affairs, so-called current affairs questions where at least 40 to 50 are there, so your chances of getting number of questions right will be relatively high. If you have not read current newspapers regularly, and if you are relying only on which one, what do you call it, typical magazine, whatever monthly magazines or compilations, and then if you expect things to go in your favor, you have to be lucky. You are depending on so many factors then. Or else what will happen, if you have cleared prelims regularly, like you might have seen in your libraries in and around you, people who write third mains, fourth mains, all of them, for them it's a different aspect, because subconsciously they'll have a confidence that prelims is my game. I can make sure that prelims I'll clear anytime. So then they'll have to play the game in mains. That's a different aspect. That if you have cleared prelims regularly twice or thrice. And so that's why, so the core point is make sure that your concepts are very, very strong. As a formula, always keep it in mind. More than 90% of the basic questions you have to get it right. Means assuming, let's say around 40 basic questions are there. Basic means understood, right? The very basics of your federalism, like if you talk about polity, I'm telling preamble, federalism, parliament, Supreme Court, president kind of a one, or in economy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, or GDP, external sector, this, that, whatever. All those basic questions I'm talking about, let's assume 40 are there. 90% questions have to go right. Means at least you can say more than 90, more than 35. That means you are into mains already. Automatically assume you will clear prelims. Provided you handle CSAT properly and make sure that at least you get 80s or 90s. That means you are in game. You get, let's say for example, out of these 40 questions, you get 30 right. That means other whatever uncertain questions are there, as I told, where they can ask questions from anywhere, and if things go in your favor there, you are lucky. So that's why please don't bet on current affairs anytime. You have to read, no doubt about it. It will help you, no doubt about it. But the game is in which one? Game is in the basic questions. Especially 4 or 5 subjects, obviously, as we keep telling, which one? Polity, economy, geography, environment, S&T. Other chapters, other questions, what do you call the subjects like ancient, medieval, art and culture, all those things, again same challenge. The challenge is what? There is no one particular source. They can ask questions from anywhere. And that too because considering the nature of subject is what? If you look at ancient, medieval, art and culture, they are all what? Very, very factual. Any number of facts you have had, it's not so easy. That doesn't mean you should not give importance to it. But prioritization is more important. And so of course along with this essay, what do you call this, 5 subjects, polity, economy, geography, environment and S&T, make sure that mapping should be have to be very, very strong. So mapping means at least I think 4 or 5 questions they are asking every year. Mapping, organization, that kind of one. Relatively cost benefit is more there. Because you put the effort, you read regularly, you make sure that you go through current, what do you call this, atlas, entire globe with respect to mountains, this, that, borders, everything. If you keep on doing it regularly every single day, you have to do it regularly. Because that's again a kind of a factual one. So where which mountain is there, it shares borders, I mean it passes through which countries, so you have seen so many ones, north to south you arrange it, what do you call this, so many ones are there. So like that, and if you do it today and then you come back another 1 month later, it is not going to work. Unless if your geography is of your optional, all those ones, you will have a better understanding of geography and all those, that's a different issue. Lately people who have geography optional is less, that's why you have to do that regularly. Another very important point, keep it in mind, especially when you want to, when you're transitioning from your graduation to UPSC kind of a competitive exam, first most important challenge what you have to understand is that in graduation or any graduation you take for that matter, how we study, we study every subject separately. Like for example, just as an example I am taking, let's say you are from engineering background, whatever subjects are there, let's say 6 subjects are there. Every subject is a separate paper, you study that subject today, you go attend the exam, come back maybe 1 day gap, 2 day gap, whatever it is depending on the schedule, again study another subject, go and then attempt it. And so, but here biggest challenge is what? That the kind of a shift that you need to have. Every subject is interlinked. Don't read each and every subject separately. Every topic is also interlinked. Means what? Let's say for example within polity you study. You should not study like federalism separately or parliament separately or center-state relations separately, emergency separately. Everything is interlinked. In other words, you need intra-subject correlation as well as inter-subject correlation. For example, when you study once you finish polity, then if you shift again, just as an example I am taking, if you shift to economy, you should not be reading only economy then. When you read economy, in your mind psychologically you have to keep on telling that, okay fine, here I am talking about RBI's monetary policy, so how can I link it to polity here? Is it, let's say for example it's related to bank, okay there is an act, who passed this act, okay parliament passed this act, then you study about something like nationalization of banks, 1969 Indira Gandhi. That you have to ask yourself, okay, how can nationalization be done under the constitution? Does constitution talk about all those things? What about mandatory compensations here? So like that, if you study about land acquisition somewhere else, again you have to link it to polity. So only if you are able to do this linkage, for example 1991 economic reform, okay, before 1991 we used to follow largely socialistic pattern. Now what is socialistic pattern? So you link it to polity then, okay, which amendment added it? Is there a definition in the constitution or not? Recently, if you recall, like remember just a few months back, Subramanian Swamy had put a case, if you recall that Balram Singh judgment in Supreme Court said what? That because Subramanian Swamy had asked Supreme Court that the socialist and secular words, recall your basics of polity, again we will discuss all of them, which are added to the preamble was done by which amendment? 42nd Amendment 1976. That's why he questioned in Supreme Court saying the date mentioned in preamble even today is what? 26th November 1949. So that's why he questioned that on 26th November 1949 the term socialist and secular was not there in the preamble. Ask them to either change the date or ask them to what? Ask them to delete that word, because on 26th November 1949 those words were not there. But Supreme Court said that nothing doing. So Constitution is a living document, you can amend it retrospectively or prospectively or anything, it is absolutely fine. Now when you read this in economy, like okay, pre-1991 Nehruvian socialistic model, you have to link it to what? How did the term socialism come first of all? What is this ideology means? Is it mentioned in the constitution? Was it there in the original constitution? Is it defined in the constitution or not? You need to question that again. Only if you have those, like for example Ladakh, multiple times, I mean remember everybody are saying this, that Ladakh is remaining what? 6th schedule status. Now look at it. One is you have to look at, you can look at it from geography, I mean polity angle. Yeah, what is there remaining? 6th schedule status. Now you should have an idea about what then. Okay, what is this 6th schedule? At present which states have it? What is the difference between 5th schedule and 6th schedule? So which is much better? The autonomous district, or we will discuss all of them, those kind of concepts. If in case Ladakh has to be added to 6th schedule, what is the procedure for it? Who can add it? Is there any criteria clearly mentioned in the constitution saying which regions or which states can be added to 6th schedule? What is the parameter? Is it mentioned in the constitution or not? That is from polity angle. But again you can look at it from what? Ladakh is in use, look at it from geography angle then. Okay, Ladakh, okay, if you look at it from a kind of sociology angle, which tribes are there? What kind of religion is there? Or what kind of geography, which rivers flow there? Does it share border with which all countries does it share border with? Now earlier it was part of Jammu Kashmir, then it was made a union territory divided. Under which article do you do that? Which act did, see if you look at any particular issue, you should have the ability to look at it from what? All the subjects. Can I link it to polity? Can I link it to economy? Can I link it to geography? Can I link it to some tribes kind of a sociology kind of an angle? Can I link it to maybe let's say an art and culture? Maybe you may have some very famous, I think I forgot that, those things you might, they'll tell you there's a very famous monastery also in Ladakh. So you can link it to art and culture also there. Only if you have this 360-degree perspective of any issue you take, chances are high in prelims. If you are still reading of like a typical graduation student where this subject I'll read from this book, it's a challenge still. Today's era kind of a prelims paper, only what you call this gives opportunity for those who have a 360-degree perspective, 360-degree hold on any topic you take. Please don't read it in silos, means what? Everything separately, please don't read it. In your mind you have to keep on interlinking. Sure. Another one which I normally keep telling, but I don't know how much to you give the importance to, please focus two aspects very importantly. One is curiosity, another one is common sense. Sure, it means very simple aspects like in prelims, let's say you go through a question, the moment you look at the question you feel like okay, I have never heard this topic, it doesn't matter. Based on whatever residual knowledge, whatever knowledge that you already have, try to go through the question and see. Based on the statements itself, you can eliminate so many things. You have read it, you have not read it, that doesn't matter. Common sense you have to use. If you have understood the core of constitution better, core of economy better, so many statements you can eliminate. Let's say you may look at a statement and then you can identify, okay, this constitution doesn't accept. Like the principles test, I normally keep calling it principles test, means some kind of principles are there. No statement or nothing government can do against it. For example, government cannot do anything which goes against basic structure. Government cannot do anything which goes against inclusive development. Governments cannot do anything which goes against sustainable development. Governments cannot do anything which goes against women empowerment, vulnerable sections empowerment, SC, ST. They can never do anything which goes against this, or international law, going against international law, never ever allowed. If you have a broader idea about this constitution, basic structure, inclusive development, sustainable development, what international law says, so many statements you can just eliminate like that. So that's why you should have a broader map. Prelims always remember is about macro understanding. I mean, now, yeah, some questions they try to go to a little in depth, no doubt, we are not denying it. But largely always remember, civil service exam is a generalist exam. Means what? They are not expecting you to have an in-depth hold on any particular subject. They are not expecting some subject matter experts here, like an economist, like a political science scholar, like a geographer. They are not expecting that from you. What they want? They are testing you, do you have an ability to understand things broadly? And short, that's why remember famously what IAS they call it as jack of all trades. Do you have the ability to think from 360-degree perspective, not in depth like a PhD scholar? That to an extent you can make use of that kind of a specialist knowledge in your optionals. Even in GS mains also, larger perspective is important. Not a kind of a scholar kind of a perspective is not necessary. Nowhere in prelims, nowhere in your essay as well as GS in your mains. Optional, yes, to an extent, not like exactly a scholar, but yeah, maybe you can say post graduation kind of a hold you need to have any optional that you do, but never ever in GS. Always think like that. Curiosity is very, very important. Anything that is happening in and around you, please try to look at it from an UPSC perspective. Anything that happens around you. For example, recently there was an Indigo issue. So you I need to have a basic curiosity. Okay, they are talking about airports kind of a one, or let's say for example flyer, whatever you call it as planes kind of a one. Very simple polity question. Any questions you try to ask yourself. Okay, they are talking about civil aviation. Civil aviation is which subject first of all? Why did the problem happen? Okay, they are talking about something called as FDTL, whatever, flight duty, time limitation, all those things. Who made those rules? Is it binding or not? And so they are talking about airports. What was Airports Authority of India doing meanwhile? What is this Airports Authority of India? Is it a constitutional body? Is it a statutory body? Is it a the executive body? Who heads it? What all can they do? Very simple. Any question that you ask, anything that you look at in and around you, please try to look at it from an UPSC perspective. Ask questions by yourself. Don't think only like a student or an aspirant. Try to think like an examiner. Means what? If you have a broader analysis of PYQ, you will only have an idea, okay, how UPSC is trying to ask question. Tune your mind like that. Okay, on this particular topic, you only make statements. Okay, on this particular issue, let's say Ladakh issue, what all statements UPSC can ask? You make statements, like 3-4 statements you only make. That Ladakh, this was made a union territory under so-and-so act or so-and-so year. You only make a statement. In Ladakh, which tribes are more in number? Which monastery is there in Ladakh? You try to change it with whatever is there in Arunachal Pradesh or Sikkim, change it and ask a question. Think like an examiner. And so don't keep on reading only like an aspirant. Only if you think like an examiner, you can try to understand, okay, what is UPSC trying to question in me? If you only keep on looking at it from a student perspective, you will not understand what is their demand. You should always remember the core intention of prelims is what? Multiple times they keep saying it. Core intention of prelims is simple. Let's say around 5 lakh people write. I have already told you multiple times, I keep telling this. All those 4 lakh are not serious. 1 to 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh only are serious. Serious means those who put regularly at least 1 to 2 years, those who have put the effort. Competition is only in them. Forget about that. This particular point that I am trying to make is that they could have directly conducted mains for you. Let everybody write mains. But the challenge is what? How will you correct papers of 4 lakh students? If you correct papers of evaluate 4 lakh students papers, imagine the time that you have to take. That's why the intention is what? Intention of prelims is just to identify those people who have basic conceptual clarity. Others you eliminate them, and those who have basic conceptual clarity, test their relatively in-depth knowledge, their ability to take stand in the mains. That is the only intention. That's why have a broader conceptual clarity. That is the intention UPSC conducts prelims for. Eliminate others, those who are non-serious. And sure, of course, it's not so easy to tell, but that is the core intention. So that only 10,000 on an average, 10 to 12,000 students only have to correct their mains papers. That is the idea. PYQs are the gold mine. Please never ever forget about neglecting it. Day in, day out from now, if you are starting your 100% prelims preparation, if in case I am assuming that, make sure that every single day, whatever you study, never study anything without referring to PYQs. It should be in your fingertips. Entire pattern means what? what kind of questions are they asking, what are the number of questions they are asking. Let's say polity on an average they ask 15 questions on an average. Last year I think 23 it was somewhere around 18-19 questions, but this year, last year, everything it is almost around 15. So very rarely, I think as far as I recall, 2019 or 20 that has around 10 questions, but that is rare. Normally it is around 15. And so right from that, what is the number of questions they are asking on an average, then in which subjects they ask more questions from. Obviously everybody knows fundamental rights, preamble, Supreme Court, Parliament, some 6-7 chapters are there, they ask more number of questions there. That is not enough, then again you have to go in depth. In Supreme Court, which particular topics they ask more questions from. Removal of Supreme Court judges, they relatively ask more. Appointment, they relatively ask more. Independence, they ask more. 136, 142, they ask more. And so within that again, what kind of questions are there? Means what? Are they trying to play with the statement and trying to confuse me? Are they asking like 4 or 5 statements and trying to confuse me, means with the length of the question? Or are they trying to play a game with which one? Options? That pattern you should go in analysis wise, you have to go in depth. And so if you have a very basic idea of okay, in polity 15 questions are asked, these are the important chapters, it will not work. So this analysis you will only get if you do very in-depth analysis of PYQs. Please keep always question bank with you. And so subject wise means, let's say polity questions within polity, again chapter wise, fundamental rights at least 10-15 years questions. Again article 21 within that, whatever 10-15 years question. Right to equality, under that again 10-15 years question. Only then you will get a better idea. Don't read, analysis should be very in depth. Reading you can do it broadly. That's what any topic you take, on an average what 5 to 7 points you need to have, that's it. More or less questions will be from that itself. Any topic you take, something related to science and technology, some new technology, something like maximum 5 to 10 points. So who has developed this, that, whatever core ones, questions will be from that itself for prelims. Mains is a bit different, that you will have an idea by now. Mains we can't discuss it now. Again, because some students were asking, sir, how should I completely shift to prelims from now itself? My suggestion is that if in case you have still not assuming obviously most of you are either given one mains or have to yet give mains, that kind of a one. If you are still preparing for mains, like let's say you might have joined a test series, some other, maybe if your other tests are pending, maybe optional tests you have still not given, essay you have still not given, till January 15th, please try to focus on mains also along with prelims. It's a little challenging because APEC classes itself on an average will go for 6 hours. So it's a little challenging, no doubt about it. Maybe you have to put at least 1 or 2 hours a little extra and try to work on mains till Jan 15. Especially for those who are like, sir, I just completed G subject, core subjects, option also I have just completed, I still don't have any kind of notes for mains. For those kind of people, what I would suggest is, at least for those who have only completed foundation classes, GS and optional, mains I still don't have clear cut notes, I have still not written any 3-hour test, all those things. My suggestion, at least make sure that GS4 ethics you complete, at least that. And if possible, not if possible, mandatorily, I think I told you in the orientation also, but if in case anybody had not attended orientation, at least in optional core chapters, try to write PYQs. Core chapters everybody will be knowing, every optional will have some core chapters, some major thinkers like that, at least of them, 50% of the topics, try to write PYQs. If you are shifting to prelims without having at least ethics and at least writing PYQs of 4 to 5 years of the core chapters or core topics of your optional, you are risking your mains. And so most of you are assuming you are writing the first mains and then you have to start your entire mains preparation after prelims, means it's a risky issue. You will clear prelims, mains will become challenging. That's why please manage at least these things. No, you have already done it, sir. Security, internal security to IR to social justice to society to ethics, everything. The core mains topics also I have notes. I have still not revised it. Then again, same suggestion, at least for ethics and optional, try to write answers. And if you have notes, revision everything of internal security, IR, you can take care of that after prelims. That's not an issue. But if you don't even have done ethics, if you have not even have written answers for PYQs of optional, huge challenge. And so please manage that also at least till January mid. By that time, obviously, at least some 3-4 subjects would have already been done by now in APEC classes. then you can take care of it. Is it clear? Essay also, at least make sure that minimum 5 essays you write, 5 in the sense 5 into 2, 10 topics, at least 5 till January mid, whenever possible, maybe week once, something like that. If you write also 3 to 4 to 5 weeks are there, so by January mid you can do that. Is it clear? Okay, these are the core ones. And obviously, so in here what will happen, as I mean, most of you obviously would have done foundation class from one or other way, maybe here or maybe somewhere else also. So whatever we do normally, polity classes or 45 classes, so here we have to finish it very quickly. You have to be very quick in writing it down. So I mean, what you call, I'll just keep on telling it. So whatever from the only and only from prelims perspective we discuss. Mains aspects, all those things will not touch here. Assured. Only from the, and please make very good notes, because that it's notes itself every year, whatever you are going to ask, so those who had joined last year, last APEX or before that APEX also, that notes will help you for your quick last minute revision also. Quickly you have to note it down, you have to be very quick, and then obviously after every chapter or combination of chapters, we'll solve PYQs, we'll try to identify what kind of questions are they asking, what is the pattern, what kind of logics you have to use here. So even without any basic, without a broader in-depth understanding also you can solve a lot of questions. All those things we'll try to do. Assured. Of course, content wise, lot of things, if you have done foundation class, lot of things will repeat. Current affairs, everything with respective chapters only, we'll try to keep on continuously doing with along with those chapters. Fine. Okay, so let's start with first it's a very basics, which normally UPSC has lots of questions also. Be very quick in noting it down, you will not have time here. And you can keep margins also, like how you do it in foundation classes, because when you keep on revising in maybe March or April, when you keep revising it, at that time if you get any additional topics, any current affairs also, you can keep adding it down. Fine. Yeah, let's start with the very simple basics. Obviously, which one? The first very favorite topic of UPSC, which one? Constitutionalism. I'll show you the PYQs if you have gone through it by now. At least some 4 or 5 times I have asked constitutionalism or constitutional state or constitutional government. Assured. And even 1 year what they asked, I think 24 question it was. The intention of a written constitution or intention of a constitution is asked. Even if they ask intention of a constitution or meaning of all these things, try to recall multiple times we have told, what is it? Limited powers. Just search for this keyword, that's it. Wherever you find limited power, that's your answer. Constitutionalism or constitutional state or constitutional government, limited power. Intention of constitution is also what? Limited power. Even if they ask intention of having a constitution, because they will ask you so many things, that the intention of a constitution is to ensure welfare of people, is to provide equal opportunity for their also intention, we are not saying no, but the core intention of having constitution is what? Make sure that limited power exists. It is not ensuring welfare of people, that's different aspect, that's within the DPSP, all those kind of ones. Clear? That is very simple basics. Fine. The second one, obviously multiple times even this they have asked, separation of, here so many interlinkages we'll keep doing. So separation of power, first point you tell, who gave the concept? Montesquieu gave the concept. Answer, which book? The Spirit of Laws. That doesn't mean he is the one who introduced the concept. Even people like Plato, Aristotle, everybody has spoken about it, have discussed about it. But in the recent times, during the French Revolution, he made it famous. That's why the credit is given to him. The book Spirit of Laws. Answered. And obviously, what is SOP, separation of power, is what? Basic structure. Separation of power is part of basic structure according to Supreme Court itself. Answered. Separation of power means which article if they ask? Article 50. It's mentioned in Article 50 DPSP. Answered. And then India follows what kind of separation of power? India follows flexible separation of power. Understood? But Supreme Court, of course, I mean, Constitution doesn't say it. Supreme Court clarified in so many cases, including Ram Javaya case and Indira Gandhi case. Ram Javaya case, Indira Gandhi case, that India follows flexible SOP. Understood? And obviously, who follows strict SOP? Obviously, who? Exactly, strict SOP. Strict SOP is United States. Understood? All the points related to separation of power. And if they ask a very simple question like separation of power is necessary for constitutionalism, of course yes, separation of power is necessary for constitutionalism. Yeah, for constitutionalism, another aspects also, okay, we should have written, I'll clarify that now. Without separation of power, you cannot have constitutionalism, because constitutionalism itself is what? Limited power. How can you have limited power without having separation of power in your country? It is mandatory. Separation of power is mandatory for constitutionalism, necessary. Understood? Actually related to this, if you have another concept, till now they have not asked it in prelims, but 1 year they had asked it in mains. There is a concept called as what? Separation of functions. Actually India follows separation of functions. Separation of function means what? See, making laws is a function, and who does the making laws? Legislature. So that's why India follows separation of function. India follows SOP also, but what is SOP? Flexible SOP. So look at it, separate functions we have separated, but making laws only legislature will not do. Who will also do? Executive will also do. What is the example? Delegated legislation. So look at it, for example, adjudication or interpretation of laws, judiciary should do, but not only judiciary, executive will also make sure through which one? Tribunals. That's why India follows separation of function, correct, but only legislature will not make laws in India, executive will also make it. Similarly, only judiciary will not interpret, executive will also interpret. That's why functions are separated, powers are not strictly separated. If powers are strictly separated, only who should make laws then? Only legislature should make laws, only executive should implement it, and only judiciary should interpret it. India doesn't follow strict SOP. India follows clear-cut separation of function, but overlapping, which one? Separation of powers. So making laws, multiple organs will do it. Is that clear? These things with respect to separation of power, keep it in mind. Of course, again another one, here we should have written another one, just link to it. Which concept? If they ask, written constitution mandatory for constitutionalism, answer is what? Written constitution mandatory for constitutionalism, answer is what? No, obviously. Which country? Very simple. UK. Written country, not mandatory for constitutionalism. Is not mandatory for constitutionalism. Then what is it then? It is, what is it then? Best option to ensure constitutionalism. It is the best option to ensure constitutionalism. That doesn't mean it is mandatory. And so the example is what? UK. And what is it also? Written constitution will not ensure constitutionalism also. Again remember, simple example, Germany under Hitler, what they had? They had a written constitution, but what they did not have? They did not have constitutionalism. So that's why the statement written constitution not mandatory and not what? What is it not also? It is not sufficient. They may use different words. It is not sufficient also because Germany under Hitler. It is not necessary also, simple example UK. Same way, very simple basics. If they ask written constitution, same statement, is written constitution mandatory for democracy? Again the answer is what? No. Again which country? UK. It is not, written constitution is sufficient for democracy. Again answer is what? No. Same statements repeat. Written constitution is neither mandatory nor sufficient for democracy. Same example, UK, Germany. And so just because you have a written constitution doesn't mean you have constitutionalism in the country. Saudi Arabia may also have a constitution, but what they don't have? They don't have constitutionalism. If you have a monarchy, how will you have constitutionalism then? Monarchy by definition is what? Concentration of power. And so constitution is what, by simple terms, set of basic rules and principles which every individual should abide by. And it which talks about functions, responsibilities of various organs, their interrelationship. Doesn't mean it will ensure democracy, doesn't mean it will ensure constitutionalism, does not mean it will ensure separation of power. It is, what is it? For all of those things, what is the answer? It is just the best option that you have. Neither mandatory, nor necessary, nor sufficient. So very simple one. And written and unwritten, obviously, very simple aspect. If they ask Which country is the first which is the first country to have a written constitution? US, obviously. Keep on writing all of those ones. Which year? 1787. World's first written codified constitution, United States, 1787. World's first written codified constitution, US, 1787. Right? Okay, so then again linked to separation of power concept, which one? Principle of checks and balances. Again, checks and balances and SOP interlinked. Interlinked to separation of power as well as which one? Constitutionalism. Interlinked to separation of power and constitutionalism. If you don't have checks and balances, obviously this will not, you cannot ensure constitutionalism, you cannot ensure separation of power. Right? Even if that statement like checks and balances is mandatory for democracy, again answer is what? Yes. For democracy also. Remember, constitutionalism, separation of power, checks and balances, democracy, fundamental rights, all interlinked. You understood? Please don't confuse with them. Sometimes they may, if you recall your 2021 prelims, we'll go through all of those ones. They had given this pretty famous word called as committed judiciary. That again I'll tell you in judiciary, but because the word came, the concept came, that's why I'm repeating it. So they had used a word called as committed judiciary. What do you mean by actually committed judiciary? Committed judiciary doesn't mean committed to the constitution. Committed means what here? Actually committed means you can reinterpret it as compromised. So means what do you mean by, you tell, same common sense you apply. Committed judiciary means compromised means, that means you are listening to whom then? Government in power. In other words, committed judiciary means favorable to the party in power, government in power. Favorable to government in power. That means you tell, if you are favorable to the government in power, obviously that means your independence of judiciary is ensured, questioned, compromised. So that means you tell, that means committed judiciary is what do you call this, favorable for democracy, not favorable for democracy. Not favorable for democracy. Not favorable for democracy. Because they may give you statements any which way. They may give you statements like committed judiciary will ensure is necessary for constitutionalism. If you interpret committed judiciary as committed to constitution, you will feel like yes, it is correct. Committed judiciary means committed or favorable to whom? Government in power. Against constitutionalism, against checks and balances, against democracy. And so, or they may ask you in place of judiciary, they may also ask which statement? Committed bureaucracy also they may say. Committed bureaucracy is also what same? What is it not? It's not favorable for democracy. Yes, you have to work under the party in power, no doubt about it, but you should not expect bureaucracy to be committed to the party in power. Bureaucracy always has to be what? For bureaucracy, what do we tell? Bureaucracy should always be what? Neutral. And sure, but what governments expect, especially what we keep telling Indira Gandhi era, what government expected? Committed. Means Indira Gandhi told that bureaucracy should be committed to us. Us means what? Party in power or people in power. But that is not good for democracy. Clear? Because this word, we'll go through it, you'll get an idea. Committed judiciary. Clear? This is very first set of basics. And written constitution, unwritten, obviously, unwritten, which is the famous country for it? UK is world's most famous unwritten constitution. And so that's why UK is famously called as what? UK is famously called as what? Evolutionary democracy. Why is it called as evolutionary? Because it did not become democracy once for all. Not like in case of India. Over a long period of time it evolved. And so that's why a lot of people tell which is the world's oldest democracy. Also if they ask what you should choose, don't choose UK, choose US. Famously they considered US as the world's oldest democracy. Again repeating, US, world's first written constitution, world's oldest democracy, world's oldest federation. All three US only. Understood? Because here we will not do it topic by topic. So many things we keep on interlinking. So many topics of fundamental rights also I will bring in DPSP, Parliament, everything, because if you are attending here means you have already completed basics. I need not do it topic by topic here, that is in your normal foundation classes. So US three aspects: world's first written constitution, world's oldest democracy, world's oldest federation also. All three US, and as I told just now, very strict separation of power. Other aspects we'll discuss separately. Right? And UK, what is the famous one that you have to keep it in mind? Again, we'll repeat that in your fundamental rights. UK means, which year should come to your mind first? 1215 means what is the word? What is the word? Magna Carta, that means which king? King John the Fourth. Understood? And what do you mean by Magna Carta? Set of rights given to the landlords, nobles, barons of UK. Set of rights given to nobles of UK. Even today that's considered as the very, what do you call this, starting of the concept of rights across the world. British King John the Fourth, set of rights given to the nobles of UK. Fine? Yeah, and then another very simple set of basics. Again, we do it in your normal classes also, but UPSC has asked these questions. Whenever you say country, what is the first keyword? What kind of concept is it? It's a geographical entity. Understood? And what are the three main components? First main component, territory. Second main component, population. And third main component, government. And whenever you say government, as a concept you have to take all the three organs. Though famously as a government we refer to executive, that too political executive. As a concept, theoretically the definition is government includes all the three organs. Clear? Another one, when they include nation, obviously what kind of concept is this? It's a social, psychological concept. A sense of, a feeling of togetherness. Understood? And what you should have always? Common identity should be there. And obviously, what are the famous common identities? Either religion or language. Sometimes it can be others also, like Indian case it's a completely different angle, but now some or other common identity should be there. Not every country is a nation, always keep it in mind. Just because you are a country doesn't mean you are a nation. Common identities like religion, language, etc. A sense of togetherness, social, psychological concept. That's why if you recall your modern India, remember during moderates, that's why they keep telling, moderates wanted to transform India into a nation. Nation in making the case, because they felt at that time India was still not psychologically united. That's why they keep on telling, if you recall your moderates like Gopal Krishna Gokhale or what do you call this, Badruddin Tyabji, all of them, they keep telling we need to Surendranath Banerjee, we want to transform India first into a nation. Means what? That we should start having a feeling that what? We all are one. Whatever, that's your modern India aspects, just to keep it in mind. That's your nation angle. Then comes, which UPSC has already asked this statement, and famously I keep telling that you have also a lot of times in your basic classes also. Yeah, what is the key word that you need to have? Sovereignty. And whenever you say sovereignty, what is the simple definition? Free from any kind of external control, or if you want different ways, what do you have? You will have the ultimate decision making power with you. Understood? And if they ask those three dates, okay, again we'll write those. free from any kind of external control, ultimate decision making power. Right? Yeah, now for this here itself what we'll do, we'll link some aspects related to your preamble. Fine, what are the first key ones? Very famously we keep telling this. Till August 15th or August 14th also you can say 1947, India was what? India was a colony. From here till Jan 26th, 1940, India was an independent democracy, but what is the key word? This is the key word. Dominion status. Unsure, when you use the word dominion, what does it mean? Just as in not exactly as, but in Indian context. British Queen or British Crown was our crown. British Queen was our queen. Unsure, that's why India was not considered as sovereign. India was considered as dominion. And then remember, as we keep recalling, what is it? Even today, countries like Australia, New Zealand, Canada are dominions of UK even today. So British King Charles is not just the king of Britain, he is also king of what? Australia, New Zealand, Canada. They are also dominions of Britain even today. Understood? Then from Jan 26, 1940, what did India become? Sovereign democratic republic. 3 keywords. Then based on 42nd Amendment 1976, what India became? Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So twice or thrice they have asked this. On January 26, 1950, what is the status of India? They have asked that one statement. And another is very basic, socialist, secular, when did that? That also they ask. They have not asked the dominion concept, but broader idea. Actually, normally this is your preamble topic, because there when we discuss sovereignty, we will discuss it. Because now that basics are all done, so that's why directly I have written this here itself. Sovereign Democratic Republic from Jan 26. And 42nd Amendment 1976, Sovereign Socialist Democratic Republic. Sovereign Socialist Secular Democratic Republic. Right? Yeah, now come back to those terms again. Which one? We are discussing state. Now, normally that is still there, they will give you questions, but if in case they ask extra ones, nation state, because in NCERT these terms are also mentioned. Nation state in simple terms means what? Nation concept is first there, then you will have state. Simple examples: unification of Germany, unification of Italy, unification of Germany, Italy, even formation of Pakistan for that matter, or creation of Israel. Israel continuously is in news, so just keep it in mind. Creation of Israel, which movement? Remember we keep telling that Zionism movement. And so two nation theory, whatever you call it as. Now that's the sort. Because Israel is in news, obviously again you have to look at it from what? Their history perspective, which religion is there, Jews, their language, and so the geography of Israel. All those aspects you should keep it in mind. Yeah, that's a very favorite topic for UPSC. If you go through especially IR and mapping, there they'll discuss again in detail. That is your nation state. Now reverse it then. What is the next concept? State nation. Unsure. What is the famous example for this according to a lot of scholars? Example India, especially according to, if you recall, Yogendra Yadav, Professor Yogendra Yadav. In NCERT itself they had mentioned it. State nation means first we became state on January 26, 1950. Gradually we became a nation is what his argument is. But practically it's a combination of both. Clear? That's why if you recall, if you apply European definition to India, what is India called as? India is, again this is famous statement of Yogendra Yadav, India is one state with multiple nations. If you apply which definition? That okay, one common identity has to be there. Okay, that means Tamil language, Tamil Nadu, Punjabi, Punjab, Karnataka, Karnataka, like that. If you apply, India is considered as one state with multiple nation. Though now a lot of people criticize this kind of a, what do you call this, description, saying that don't describe it like that. India has always been a nation state because the party in power and their ideology is a bit different. That's why they keep calling. Overall perspective, if you take, question they will not ask you about this because it's a controversial one. This is, remember always in prelims they try to be what? That's why the question itself is, there are what kind of questions? Objectives. Means what? Where you have scope for interpretation, they try to avoid that in prelims. Because when you have interpretation, what is the scope? You may have different answers. They largely stick to where there is clarity. Consensus has to be there. If there are this kind of statement, it's controversial. They will not ask it, just keep it in mind. Again, another one which we normally keep telling, though you don't have a chance of getting these questions, but keep it in mind. Civilizational state. Again, best example is who? India. That means it is not religion which is common, it is not civilization which is common. What is common? Civilization is common for us from a long time. Civilization is the common identity, not religion, not language. Civilization is common identity, new concept, relatively right-wing concept, not famously accepted, but you can keep it in mind. Now link to this, if in case they ask, remember, see, committed judiciary concept we saw. This question they have not asked, but just to keep it in mind, there is a concept of what? Deep state. Then what do you mean by deep state? Deep state means those who are actually not elected by the people, they will be controlling the government sometimes. They are called as deep state. Simple example is what? In Pakistan, famously what they call? Army is the deep state. See, army is not directly elected by people. In a democracy, what is the basic idea? Who should have the control? People's representatives should have the control. That means those who are elected by people. How is the army controlling things then? That is what you call as deep state. So deep state means what? Those who are not elected by the people will be actually taking the most important decisions. And so that is deep state. Those not directly elected by people. Quick, please be very quick. Those not elected by the people will be taking the most important decisions. Simple example is what? The best you can anytime write. Example, Pakistan Army. Some people tell that what in so many companies, so many countries, corporates are deep state. Corporate means what? Companies control things. See, they are not directly elected, but they will make sure that people in power take decisions on your behalf. And so that is the example. In India also there are so many allegations that we can't discuss, but that is deep state concept. Those who are not directly elected by people will be taking the most important decisions. You never know. Sometimes they may ask that kind of a very simple statement they may ask. Fine? Yeah, okay, fine. So that is another one. Now let's again come back to another set of basics. Which one? Let's go to very simple one. Functions of constitution is not necessary for us. Yeah, directly we'll go to making of constitution. From prelims perspective, not a very important chapter because normally you don't get question. Last year you had a question. Actually two questions if you recall last year. 23 one, 24 one. One they asked on what? 26 November 1949 they asked. And then we know another one they asked which one? Who was the temporary head of the assembly? That was the very, very simple ones. Everybody knows. Very quickly, within 5 minutes, we can sum up the entire chapter. First simple one is what? Who demanded officially Indian Constitution or Constituent Assembly for the first time? M.N. Roy, 1934, officially demanded. First official demand for a Constituent Assembly. First official demand for a Constituent Assembly. And so again to keep it in mind, Gandhi was much before him, he had demanded, but he had done it where? He had done it in his magazines, especially Hind Swaraj magazine. That's why we don't refer Gandhi as the first person to officially demand. Officially means writing it to the British and demanding it, M.N. Roy. Again, just to give it a modern India angle, who is M.N. Roy? Recall all that's what I told, intra-subject, inter-subject, both you will have people's plan. Assured, a kind of a draft 5-year plan, not 5-year plan exactly, draft plan before 5-year, before planning commission. M.N. Roy, people's plan. M.N. Roy, again modern India angle, associated with which party? Communist Party of India. What is his ideology? radical democratism. In fact, a lot of people consider him as kind of father of communism in India, but though there are a lot of other opinions also, that's not necessary for us. His ideology, radical democratism. He was also part of, if you recall world history, first Communist International, second Communist International, not very important. People's Plan, Communist Party of India, radical democratism. Fine, yeah, Gandhi had demanded it much before itself. That is very basic ones. Now, if very simple, when did British accept it for the first time then? Very simple, August Offer 1940, British accepted it for the first time. August Offer, what are the provisions of August Offer? That's your modern India. August Offer 1940, British offered it, accepted Constituent Assembly for first time. British offered Constituent Assembly for first time. In short, but obviously what is it? Rejected by Congress. Obviously, if you recall modern India again, what is the reason? Because they said that first point they did not give, they did not, offer Purna Swaraj, complete independence. They had not offered to, they had told Constituent Assembly will consist mostly of Indians. So the word mostly of became controversial, saying what does that mean? Means we will also be part of it then. India, British also will be part of it. But by that time the demand was what? Only and only Indians should be part of the assembly. That's why we rejected it. Congress rejected it. And short. Then again British offered it in which one? Which one? Obviously the second one. Cripps mission. Very simple basics. These are not conceptual. Whatever we discuss till now at least is conceptual. Cripps mission 1942. Of British offered it again. Though here they are told only Indians also, British offered Constituent Assembly again. But again what is it? Rejected by both Congress as well as League. Why? Again, dominion status itself was offered, Purna Swaraj they had not offered. Failure of this itself led to what? Launch of Quit India movement. That's your modern India angle. Then British offered it again. In which one? Cabinet Mission Plan 1946, after Second World War. First points, recall who are the members, who are the chairperson. Who was the chairperson? Lord Pethick Lawrence, chairperson. Members who? Stafford Cripps, Sir Stafford Cripps, the same Stafford Cripps mission. Sir Stafford Cripps. And then who? A.V. Alexander. A.V. Alexander. This is your cabinet mission. But for this, what is it? Accepted by both Congress and League. Again, even in this, they had not offered complete independence. But because it was already after Second World War, all those for various reasons, they accepted it. Okay, fine. So then, yeah, those points keep it in mind. Which one? Provisions or composition. Composition of Constituent Assembly based on Cabinet Mission Plan. Cabinet Mission Plan 1946. Very quickly sum up. Overall strength is how much? 389. Subdivided 296 plus 93, subdivided 292 plus 4. This is for, this is for provinces. This is for Chief Commissioners provinces. If you recall, which are the Chief Commissioner provinces at that time? Delhi plus Ajmer plus Coorg plus Baluchistan. Yenai, Andaman Nicobar Island was also a Chief Commissioner province, but he did not have members. So then of course 93 is for whom? These are very simple basics. This is normally not a favorite topic for UPSC. Whatever we discussed till now is a conceptual angle favorite for UPSC. 93 princely states. Fine. Then again, simple equation, seats, number of seats directly proportional to population. Then seats divided between Muslims, Sikhs, others. Then members of provinces. What is it? First point, indirectly elected. 2. By whom? By already elected members. Already elected members who are part of provincial legislature. Already elected members who are part of provincial legislature. Now, then what is it? PRS TV. Proportional representation, single transferable vote. Indirectly elected, already elected members who are already part of provincial legislature. Another one, we forgot to mention which one? Same community. So another point you add there. Means those who are already part of the provincial legislature plus belong to same community. Part of the same legislature, part of the provincial legislature plus same community. And based on PRS TV. And what about princely states? Very simple, obviously, very ones directly nominated by heads of the states, or you can say head princes, kings, whatever. Princely states directly nominated. Members of princely states directly nominated by the king or princess, whatever you call it as. And that's why the famous statement is what? The members of Constituent Assembly, first keyword, indirectly elected, second keyword, separate electorate. Both the words keep it in mind. Why is it called a separate electorate? Because who is voting? Members of the same community are voting. That's why separate electorate. And so simple statement if they ask, please don't get confused. The game is in the simple basics itself. Members of Constituent Assembly, overall if you take, first point, indirectly elected, partially indirectly elected, partially nominated. First is indirectly elected. Second, separate or communal electorate. Separate or communal electorate. Separate or communal electorate. And 3, if you want to add, nominated. Few were nominated. Of course, the princely states. Few were nominated. Fine. Elections conducted in 1946, all those things not necessary for us. Yeah, now just to continue again. Next one, that is what is the statement that I asked. First session where? December 1946. Who is the temporary head? Yeah, very simple statement. This they had asked it as your prelims question. Sachidananda Sinha, temporary head. Sachidananda Sinha, temporary head. Then obviously everybody knows Dr. Rajendra Prasad, head, deputy head, head president, whatever. Yeah, which one? H.C. Mukherjee plus V.T. Krishnamachari, Deputy Heads. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Head, that is Chairperson of Constituent Assembly. H.C. Mukherjee, V.T. Krishnamachari. Very simple facts. Initial chapters of your polity. V.T. Krishnamachari, H.C. Mukherjee, temporary heads. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, permanent, in others, head, chairperson. H.C. Mukherjee, V.T. Krishnamachari, deputy heads. Fine. Then just link to that. Next one. Next is what? The concept of objective resolution. Simple. First statement, drafted by Jawaharlal Nehru. Second, what does it consist of? Or you can say goals of constitution, direction to the constitution, reflected in where? Today's preamble. That's it. That's the only ones. And if they give you statements like the term secularism was mentioned in objective resolution, the term of socialism was mentioned, obviously same. In the original preamble were the terms socialism, secularism mentioned. So same logic. Even in objective resolution, what you don't find? The term secularism, socialism, you don't find even in the objective resolution. Clear? Same points. Fine. Then very next basics is which one? Changes brought by Indian Independence Act 1947. Again very simple basics. Changes brought by 1947 Act. You tell very simple points. First is what? 389 became 299 for obvious reason, because along with independence India got partitioned also. 229 plus 70. 389 became 299, 229 plus 70. Fine. Then second change is what? Constituent Assembly, completely sovereign body. Constituent Assembly, completely sovereign body. What does that mean? No British control, can repeal any act. 2. Constituent Assembly, two functions. One is what? Of course, the first is very basic. Draft constitution. Second is what? Act as dominion legislature. One is to draft constitution, second is to act as dominion legislature. Understood? Obviously same again. When you are sitting to draft the constitution, who is the head? Same, just now whatever you wrote. Dr. Rajendra Prasad is chairperson. Now when you are sitting to function as dominion legislature, who is the head? Recall very basics. G.V. Mavlankar was the head, the first speaker of Lok Sabha. Dominion legislature, G.V. Mavlankar was the head. G.V. Mavlankar, M-A-V-L-A-N-K-R. Obviously multiple times even in Parliament we keep referring Mavlankar rule. Can you recall that? 10% rule. What is 10% rule? Leader of opposition, if you want to have the leader of opposition position for your party should have minimum 10% seats in the house. 10% rule is famously called as what? Mavlankar rule, because he made the rule. He is the head of the, in other words, chairperson of the Dominion legislature as well as speaker of first Lok Sabha, even second Lok Sabha also. I think meanwhile in the second Lok Sabha he died, so that's why they elected another person. That's a different issue. So G.V. if you want, here itself you had intra-subject correlation. What is he? First Lok Sabha speaker, G.V. Mavlankar. First Lok Sabha speaker. 2 is what? 10% rule. Keep interlinking so that for revision also it will be helpful for you. 10% rule, also called as what? That is Mavlankar's rule. 10% rule, that is Mavlankar's rule. What do you mean by 10% rule? LOP, leader of position, belongs to the party which has minimum 10% seats in the house. Please keep reading. Leader of position, LOP. LOP belongs to the party which has minimum 10% seats in the house. LOP belongs to the party which has minimum 10% seats in the house. Understood? Yeah, just to link it again. The same Dominion legislature later worked as what? Just try to recall that. Dominion legislature means Constituent Assembly, it's like this. Constituent Assembly, it functioned as Dominion legislature till when? 26th Jan 1950, because till 26th Jan India was what? India was what? Dominion. Later it functioned as what? Provisional Parliament. Till first Lok Sabha functioned, started to function. In other words, almost till April 1952. After first Lok Sabha election. The same Constituent Assembly, one it functioned as Dominion legislature till January 26, 1950. Two, the same Dominion legislature renamed as what? Provisional Parliament. Provisional means what here? Simple. Temporary. Temporary Parliament till first Lok Sabha started to function, that is in April 1952. Elections happened in end 1951. Lok Sabha started to function in 1952. Understood? After that, obviously, first Lok Sabha will take over, thus the function is done. Clear? So, this is about what are the changes brought by which one? Indian Independence Act 1947. First is strength reduced to made a completely sovereign body. 3, this power. 2 powers. Draft the constitution, act as parliament. 1 as Dominion legislature, 2 as provisional parliament. Until first Lok Sabha started to function, 1952. Clear? And now another change is what? Just to mention again, within Constituent Assembly, what you had? Major committees. Even this they have not asked question till now. But again, just as a matter of fact, keep it in mind. Major committees. Under that, first headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. Under that, Union Powers Committee, Union Constitution Committee, States Committee, Committee to negotiate with states. States means here princely states. Headed by Nehru, Union Powers Committee, Union Constitution Committee, States Committee, Committee to negotiate with princely states. Union Powers Committee, Union Constitution Committee, Committee to negotiate with princely states. Fine. Again, just to keep it in mind. So there was actually called as, who is actually in charge of, not in charge, or you can say greatly responsible for integration of princely states, obviously. Sardar Patel. But actually the Constituent Assembly's Committee to negotiate with princely states, who did? Jawaharlal Nehru did, don't confuse. But there was another one, just to keep it in mind. There was something called as States Department. States Department is same, to negotiate with princely states. This was under Home Ministry. And who was the Home Minister at that time? This was headed by whom? Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So he headed States Department under Home Ministry. Now what Nehru headed? States Committee under Constituent Assembly. Both are different, please don't get confused. Because if in case you don't remember that, you will feel like, okay, this also was headed by Patel. States Committee of Constituent Assembly was not headed by Sardar Patel, it was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. States Department under Home Ministry was headed by Sardar Patel. Clear? Then obviously same aspects headed by whom? Sardar Patel. Recall what are the two famous committees headed by Sardar Patel? One is Provincial Constitution Committee. 2. Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities, Tribes. Again, Subcommittee on Fundamental Rights. To this section nobody will ask you. J.B. Kripalani. Who was J.B. Kripalani? Again, if you link modern India, founder of Communist Party, founder of Congress Socialist Party, CSP. Along with, if you recall, Jaiprakash Narayan, Ram Manohar Lohia, he was one of the, Aruna Asaf Ali, all of them, Asaf Ali and Aruna Asaf Ali. Congress Socialist Party, CSP, within Congress, J.B. Kriplani. Again, if you recall, he is the person who what? He introduced the first no confidence motion in India, J.B. Kriplani, against Nehru after 1962 war. Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, J.B. Kriplani, founder of Congress Socialist Party, CSP. As far as I recall, the year is 1940, but that they will take care of it in your modern India. You can link back again. If you link Parliament, what is he? First person to introduce NCM, no confidence motion in India. First to introduce no confidence motion, who? J.B. Kriplani. Just linking all the things, whatever possible, it has all of those things has to be there. First to introduce NCM against obviously whom? Nehru after 1962 India-China war. If you recall, normally we do this in your Parliament chapter. Against Nehru in 1962 after or during India-China war. Of course, it was not successful, that's a different issue. Then saying what? Now this is fundamental rights. On minorities, who is who? Subcommittee on Minorities, H.C. Mukherjee, the deputy head of the assembly. So this is overall committee, this is subcommittee. Subcommittee on Fundamental Rights, J.B. Kriplani. Subcommittee on Minorities, H.C. Mukherjee. And then subcommittee on Tribes, Gopinath Bordoloi. These are all not important, just keep it in mind. Gopinath Bordoloi. This subcommittee on other tribal areas, this is Assam tribal areas. Other tribal areas was headed by A.V. Tucker, not important. Subcommittee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities, Tribes. Fine. Then headed by Rajendra Prasad. What are the committees headed by Rajendra Prasad? Two. One is Rules Committee. Two, Steering Committee. Rules Committee or Rules of Procedure Committee also you can say. Two is Steering Committee. Rules Committee, Steering Committee. That is Rajendra Prasad. Then another very simple basics. Drafting Committee, of course everybody knows. All basics here. Though he was not an original member, he was also not original member. These kind of questions UPSC doesn't ask, at least as of now, but if in case they ask, because these are purely facts. T.T. Krishnamachari, not the original member, he replaced a member called as Kaitan. Madhav Rao, not original member, he replaced a member called as Mittar. Very simple facts. K.M. Munshi, as I keep telling, was responsible for historically is famously responsible for reconstruction of Somnath temple in Gujarat. K.M. Munshi. Unsure. So that means you should know about few basics of, because it's the era of, even recently also just less than but just I think November whatever time. So you had the Ramayadhyas, Dwajarohan, all those kind of ones, kind of linked to it. A little controversial, but just Somnath temple kind of one, keep it in mind. That's your art and culture or ancient India, that kind of, or medieval India kind of a topic. Sir Ever Jennings, if you recall, was also the first option. Not as a, just as an option, but not necessary. And so many, obviously, from historical angle also keep so many points related to Ambedkar in mind. And so which one? The Mahat Satyagraha was associated with Ambedkar, Republican Party of India, Samata Party, so many things. So which one? The famous magazine like Bahishkrita Bharat, whatever, so many other things. The other one is what? Muknath, all those ones like that, so many are there. So please keep all of that. RBI, he was also responsible for establishment of RBI in a way. So many aspects are associated with him. The Buddhist angle, Mahaparinirvan, just yesterday only, right, or day before. So you had the Mahaparinirvan, so many points are related to him. So keep that also in mind. And if you recall the polity angle, Ambedkar was elected to the Constituent Assembly from where? Bengal. If in case you don't remember that, he was elected from Bengal. Later, obviously, because of the partition, he lost his seat. Then he came and contested again where? In Bombay, from a seat vacated by a person called as Jayakar. Historical facts, you never know, but just to keep it in mind if you want, elected to Constituent Assembly from Bengal. Elected to Constituent Assembly from Bengal province. Then what happened? Lost his seat due to partition, because obviously number of seats, lost his seat due to partition. Re-elected from Bombay. Re-elected from Bombay. Chances of asking question is less, but just to keep it in mind. Re-elected from Bombay. Fine. Of course, originally, totally you had what? 3 drafts were there for the constitution based on feedback and everything, although this is not necessary. Then 3 dates. Which one? First is 3 dates for constitution. One is enactment of constitution. Which date? November 26, 1949, which is today called as Constitution Day. This is enactment, or even if they ask the word acceptance. When was the constitution accepted? And so second is what then? Signed. Signing of the constitution. Signing of the constitution is what? Jan 24th, 1950. And so then comes what? Enforcement of constitution. So 3 dates, please keep. Very simple but easy to get confused. Enforcement of constitution, Jan 26th, 1950. And of course we know why Jan 26th, 1950. Yeah, symbolic linkage to Purna Swaraj, Lahore session 1929. Understood? Jawaharlal Nehru added all of that's your modern India angle. This is the kind of modern India touch you will have. Enactment of the constitution, signing of the constitution, enforcement of constitution. Right? Enactment, signing, enforcement. Yeah, then again just to keep it in mind, original constitution. So what all you had? One is there was a preamble which remains the same, then 22 parts, then 395 articles, then 8 schedules. Assured. Of course, today it has become what? That again we'll discuss in your preamble chapter and so many other ones. 25 parts. Articles will remain the same because total number of articles will not change. 12 today. Number of articles, though, if you search them, people tell 448, 470, but we have to take what? Total number you have to take. If you go and search in the constitution, even today the last number is what? 395 itself. Additional articles, what they make it as, if you recall, capital A, 21A, what do you call 243A, 243B, those are new articles that but number wise it is still the same. That's why Supreme Court has clarified that total number of articles in the Constitution will always remain 395 only. Number will not change, that will stay the same. Within that, they will use, as I told, capital A, capital B, like that, they keep on adding it. Yeah, whatever, this is the original Constitution angle. Then obviously, again, just to keep it in mind, from November 26, 1949, provisions related to which one? Provisions related to citizenship, elections, and few temporary transitional provisions implemented. Few temporary transitional provisions implemented. Few temporary transitional provisions implemented. Obviously, from Jan 26, 1950, entire Constitution implemented. Answered. Then 1935 Act repealed. Privy Council Jurisdiction Act repealed. What is Privy Council Jurisdiction? Here itself we will discuss it. Privy Council Jurisdiction Act repealed. Government of India Act 1935 repealed. Privy Council Jurisdiction Act repealed. Privy Council Jurisdiction Act repealed. 1935 Act repealed. Fine. Yeah, just to keep it in mind, what is this Privy Council then? Interlink. What is Privy Council? Highest appellate authority during British rule. Privy Council. Actually, this is your judiciary topic, but as I told, we will do more interlinkages here. Highest appellate authority. Above which one? Above federal court. Highest appellate authority or highest appellate judiciary also you can say, during or under 1935 Act or under British rule. And sure, if you want still more clarity, whose appeals did it here? Heard appeals from federal court. If you recall 1935 Act, it was called as federal court. Heard appeals from Federal Court of India. Heard appeals from federal court. Then what is it? Legal advisors of British Crown. Legal advisors of British Crown. Consisted of the legal advisors of British Crown. Where did it function? Obviously, where will it function? British Crown means where will it function? London, Britain, whatever. London. Or Britain, it's fine. Obviously, replaced by which one? Replaced by Supreme Court in Constitution. Replaced by Supreme Court in Constitution, because obviously how can you continue to mention in the Constitution that Privy Council will be our highest court of appeal? If you are mentioning that means what you can't call yourself as then? You can't call yourself as sovereign. That's why replaced by Supreme Court in the original Constitution. So today Supreme Court will continue to remain highest appellate authority. Clear? And then other few basics obviously linked to modern India. Boundary Commission was headed by Boundary Commission to decide the borders of India and Pakistan. Who headed it? Exactly, Sir Cyril Radcliffe. Actually a modern India fact, because the topic of Indian Independence Act, everything came. Boundary Commission. Sir Cyril Radcliffe. Boundary Commission, Sir Cyril Radcliffe. Assured. And where all did they conduct plebiscites? I mean, at the time of, I mean, after independence, to decide should you join India or Pakistan? Balochistan, Northwest Frontier Province, Sylhet district of Assam. All three agreed to join Pakistan. In which one? What do you call this? Junagadh also they conducted. That's later. Balochistan, Northwest Frontier Province, Sylhet district of Assam, today part of Bangladesh obviously. Sylhet district of Assam, plebiscites conducted. In books they mention it as referendum, actually plebiscites. Because if you recall, what do you mean by plebiscite? You are taking people's vote on territorial matters. Plebiscites conducted, they all joined Pakistan. First two, West Pakistan, which one? Sylhet district of obviously East Pakistan, which later went on to become Bangladesh. Plebiscites conducted, joined Pakistan. So actually while discussing about Constituent Assembly, separate electorate itself or PRSTV itself, I should have told about FPTP, PRSTV, but for prelims we will discuss election itself as a separate topic. How elections are conducted, types of election, FPTP separate, PRSTV separate, communal electorate separate, joint electorate separate, all of those things. Election itself is a detailed topic, so the EVMs, election commission ones, that we'll discuss it, all of them at the end. So this is very first set of basics, and especially the first half what we discussed, there the UPSC has so many questions. Second half is normally not conceptual, whatever we discuss now, making of constitution, but in the recent times they have asked 2-3 questions. One is on November 26th they have asked, second is what, Sachidananda Sinha they have asked, but the composition of Constituent Assembly, all these angles they have still not asked. But you never know, they may just ask one statement they may ask or something like that, so you should have it. So then what we'll do now, we'll go directly to which one? Parliamentary system, federal system, and salient features, schedules, preamble, all of those ones. Those will matter a lot. Every year they'll ask a question. Just take a quick 10-minute break. So I'll go have some breakfast and come, and we'll continue till, we'll see, 12:30 or something like that. And then we'll have an afternoon session again. Please come back in 10-15 minutes quickly. Okay, let's continue. Someone was asking, sir, should we read NCERT separately, Lakshmikant separately? With respect to prelims, whatever is important from NCERT is from Lakshmikant, from most of the current affairs, everything, so would be covered in these classes itself. So it's not like that. Doesn't mean you should. It's not like you should not read Lakshmikant or anything like that. Of course, if you have already read Lakshmikant multiple times, you can go and refer it again and again. Absolutely fine. Answered. But whatever is important from politic perspective for prelims, I am telling you, including NCERT, reference book, your whatever was already there in your class note, plus your current affairs, most of it will be covered here, including of course the PVQ, that analysis, all those ones. Sure, because someone was asking that, so that's why I am just clarifying. Current affairs, of course, few you may have to update also, because so I will compare till here. So maybe if possible we'll see, or else obviously what over a period of time, whatever another 3-4 months will be there, so that regularly you have to keep on compiling it. But remember, especially with respect to polity, other subjects I can't comment on it. So with respect to polity, what happens, pure current affairs kind of questions are very, very rare. If you have analyzed PVQs, what they do, let's say for example last year Lokpal was in news, if in case you recall, so that does actually the High Court judges fall directly under the purview jurisdiction of Lokpal or not? That was a question, because they are actually initiated, some Madhya Pradesh High Court judge was there. Against them Lokpal wanted to initiate a criminal proceedings, means case. So that question came to Supreme Court. So Supreme Court had clarified that High Court judges does not fall under the jurisdiction of Lokpal. So because Supreme Court had clarified that, and UPSC asked this question, just to understand, now we can't know exactly that is the reason, because Lokpal was in use, they did not ask this Lokpal and High Court aspect. What they asked, if you recall your PVQ, one of the PVQ in 2025 is about Lokpal. They have asked, what are the powers, who can they investigate, something like that they have asked. That's the first question probably in prelims they have asked on Lokpal. So means whatever is in news, from that directly they will not ask. What they will do, they will take a broader picture. If Ladakh is demanding 6th schedule, so they will not ask who among the following are demanding 6th schedule, they will not ask that. What they ask, consider the following features of 6th schedule, they will go in detail. And short, if there is any interstate water dispute, they will not ask you which state water dispute, anything. What they will do, they will go back to your article 262 and ask, consider the following statements related to adjudication of the interstate water disputes. What is the act, which year the act was passed, under that act, Interstate Water Disputes Act 1956, what kind of tribunals are created, is it permanent tribunal, is it ad hoc tribunal, is their award binding or not binding, who will be normally the chairperson, they will test you they will test your knowledge like that. In simple terms, whatever issues are there in news, especially with respect to polity, economy also to a large extent, what they will do, they will come back and test your core conceptual clarity on those important current affairs. Of course, they may ask 1 or 2 tests, on 4 statements, 1 or 2 might be pure whatever is in news. 2-3 will be, go back to the core, test your clarity. That is how they test. So whenever you read something as current affairs, don't read it purely as a factual topic. Link it to what? Link it to the concept and try to test it. If you read it purely as a conceptual, remember just 2-3 days back there was a news that Indian rupee had hit the lowest one, so now it has crossed 90, then what they'll do? Because that is in news, what they'll do then? They'll go back to your, what is this depreciation, what is this appreciation, how do we do, whatever in economy, there are so many floating exchange rate, like that, so many concepts, they will go back and test you that kind of knowledge. So that's why ultimately conceptual clarity matters the most for prelims. Current affairs, you have to link it back. Don't read it purely as a concept, factual topic. That's the mistake that you will be doing. Fine? Yeah. So and then someone is asking that, sir, is current affairs important? Of course important. Answered. So you can't say that current affairs is not important. Yes. Earlier what they used to do till 2020, purely directly they used to ask like that. Now they don't ask directly like that. As I told, broader way, some other linkages they will do. Current affairs will always matter. Even now, if you are still not reading newspaper, even now from you consider today December 8th, at least till April end, that means what, 4 months in 26, almost 20 days in, almost how much you can say, 120, 130 days, you can still read newspaper. Please develop that habit. Newspaper reading is the most important skill. If possible, you only note down important points. Those who read newspapers regularly will always have much better conceptual clarity. Don't depend only and only on magazine. You use it, I am not saying no. Don't depend purely on that. And short. Or else you will be normally, though, if you read only on magazine, you are looking at it as a factual. Okay, I'll just compile it, I'll read it, I'll by heart it. It doesn't work like that. Clear? Minimum 5 questions advantage if you read newspapers regularly. Minimum 5. 100% any year. Right? Yeah, please don't neglect. So keep the habit of 1.5 hour newspaper. At least keep going through it broadly. Is it fine? Okay, fine. Let's come back. So parliamentary system, obviously, which country I don't even have to tell. We have borrowed it from UK. That's why it is called as what? If you recall the very basics, it's called as Westminster system. Other name is what? Responsible government. Another name is what? Cabinet system. These are the 3 very famous names of which one? Parliamentary system. Westminster system, responsible government, cabinet system. Sure. Why called as cabinet system? Just to mention it. Takes the most important decisions. So Westminster system, or in other words, cabinet system, cabinet ministers take the most important decisions of the government. That's why if you recall, cabinet ministers are also called as, or cabinet is also called as what? Engine room of the government, nucleus of the government. So cabinet is famously called as nucleus of the government. Control room, they take the most important decisions. Then what are the types of ministers? That again will come back to your Council of Ministers chapter. If you recall, cabinet minister, minister of state, independent charge, minister of state, deputy minister, that's a different topic. We'll come back to that later. Okay. Then of course just broadly recall the core features. First major feature is what? Dual head. Very simple ones, obviously everybody knows. First is who? President, and obviously what is president? Head of the state. Nominal head of government. De jure executive. Same points repeated. Prime Minister, head of government, real head, de facto executive. De facto executive, right? Then second most important feature, dual membership. Of course, that's very simple. What is it? Legislature is part of executive, or in other words, to become a minister, one should be an MP. Of course, there is an exception, and exception was your prelims question also in 21. What is the exception? Again, in the Article 75 itself, one who is not an MP, very simple statement obviously, one who is not an MP can also become minister, can also be appointed as minister for how many months? Yeah. So they'll ask you simple statement that, is it mentioned in the Constitution? Answer is what? Yes. Which article? Article 75. For maximum 6 months. One who is not an MP can also become minister for maximum 6 months. Article 75 itself gives you this exception. Can also be appointed as minister for maximum 6 months. Fine? Yeah, then what is the next feature? Another very simple ones, 3 points, you can just extend it like that. First is what? Majority party rule. Obviously, majority in which house? In Lok Sabha lower house. And what is the numbers now? 272. If no majority, then what do you have? Coalition government. If no majority government. If you don't have a majority government, if single party doesn't have a majority, the only option is coalition government. Understood? But that coalition government, what is the other type also within that? Within coalition government, there is other type called as minority government. So what will happen here? Coalition parties will not accept minister position. Coalition parties will not accept minister positions. That is your minority government. As of today, what you have at the national level is NDA coalition government, because obviously recently what you look at the Indigo issue itself, you have the civil aviation minister who belongs to TDP and is facing lots of criticism. So that means what? Coalition partners, if they accept minister position, you call that government as what? Coalition government. If the coalition partners does not accept minister position, you call it as what? Minority government. Sometimes in media they also use a word, if a word called as that they are giving you outside support. Outside means what? Outside means we are not part of the ministries. We are not accepting minister positions. They will give you support only just to make sure that so the government continues. Elections that is not necessary at present. Whatever, that is minority government. Extension of this is which one? Next feature. What is the feature? Political homogeneity. Obviously means what? Because minister, especially majority government, because ministers belong to the same party, what they'll have? They'll have same ideology. Very simple, political homogeneity. If there is no majority, or in other words, in case of coalition government, what they sign? They sign common minimum program, but that's not important. As of today, it doesn't have much value. The next feature is what? This also everybody knows. In a coalition, in a parliamentary system, leadership will belong to who? PM. And PM is normally called as what? PM is called as the leader of house. LOH, leader of house. Chief spokesperson of the party in power. Different description. Chief spokesperson of party in power. Leader of the house. Chief spokesperson of the party in power. Chief spokesperson of party in power. Yeah, but the most important feature of parliamentary system, which one? Article 75 clause 3. Multiple times I have asked this question. Once we go through PYQs now, you will get a better idea. Collective responsibility of Council of Ministers to, what is the word? House of People. So as I keep on telling, normally they will ask you two types of questions here. One question they ask, which is the most important feature of parliamentary system? Which one? Collective responsibility. Second question, Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to which house? House of People. Please don't choose Parliament. It is House of People, because 75 clause 3 mentions the term House of People. Is it clear? This is the most important one. Sir, how do you make it collectively responsible? Again, actually, if you look into Council of Ministers, again we'll discuss it there. But in simple terms, remember, what do you call as this? How do you make them responsible? Recall your Parliament chapter. During sessions, what do you have? Question hour, 0 hour, motions, debates. Understood? That is what you call as collective responsibility. Ministers will be questioned for their omissions and commissions, for what they have done, for what they have not done. Question hour, 0 hour, motions, debates, etc. If you recall in Parliament chapter, again we'll discuss all of them in detail. Fine? That is here in simple terms how collective responsibility is ensured. Next feature is what? Even this they have already asked it multiple times. Early dissolution of Lok Sabha. That's your next feature. Of course, Lok Sabha normal term is what? Lok Sabha term is 5 years. But how do you count 5 years? From? When do you count it from? First sitting of newly elected Lok Sabha. First sitting of newly elected Lok Sabha. So you count 5 years from the first sitting of newly elected Lok Sabha. Fine. Then who will dissolve? Who can dissolve Lok Sabha early? Early dissolution of Lok Sabha by President on, of course, what? On the advice of Council of Ministers. What is the ground? No grounds mentioned in Constitution. Means on what basis can you dissolve it early? There is no basis. Practically everything is left to the PM to decide, or you can say Council of Ministers to decide. And what is it normally? This process is normally what? Dissolution of Lok Sabha is normally what? Irreversible. Irreversible means what? Once President has dissolved it, what is it then? There is no other option. What is the next option then? General election itself within 6 months. Whatever, we'll come back to all of those things in the respective topics. But this is very, very important one. Sure, rest of that doesn't matter much. For presidential system, just reverse absolutely everything, you reverse it and write. Presidential system. Single head. Single membership. No need of majority. Leadership of President. No collective responsibility. House of Representatives cannot be dissolved earlier. Cannot be dissolved early. By definition, as we told in the beginning itself, the entire system is considered to be based on SOP. Single head, single membership, no need of majority, leadership of President, no collective responsibility, House of Representatives, because US federal legislature is also a bicameral legislature. House of Representatives is lower house, House of Senate or Senate is the upper house. House of Representatives HR cannot be dissolved early, and of course the entire system is based on which principle? Principle of SOP, separation of power. This is your features of presidential system. Features of presidential system. Fine. Yeah, then more important for us, of course, because we have borrowed parliamentary system from which country? From UK. Make 2 columns. This normally UPSC has asked this. British parliamentary system. Very simple differences. Of course, these are all very basics. In books also you would have studied multiple times. Along with that, we need to keep on linking so many other things. British parliamentary system. First feature, what is it? Constitutional monarchy. Again, when you say constitutional here, that doesn't mean they have a constitution. It only means what? Constitutionalism exists. India is what? Obviously republic. And what is the basic definition of republic? Head of the state directly or indirectly elected by the people. Fine. 2. What they do? What is this? Unwritten constitution, written. This is not the core difference, but yeah, just to mention. Then what is it then? PM should belong to, which was there? PM should, what is the lower house there? House of Commons. In India, what is it? Either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. There, only MPs can become minister. Of course, in India also it is same. What is the difference? Yeah, in India, just as we have already written, exception of 6 months. Same point also, but just the exception of 6 months. Only MPs can become ministers. Then what do they follow? Shadow cabinet followed. No shadow cabinet. Legal responsibility of minister. No. So both these provisions not followed in India. Shadow cabinet is not followed in India. Legal responsibility of minister is also not followed in India. Yeah, what do you mean by shadow cabinet? If you recall, in simple terms, what do you mean by shadow cabinet? Opposition party will also form their own, what do you call this, group. If you search, you will get a shadow prime minister of UK, shadow finance minister of UK, all of those things. They will not have any power. Their only role is what? To question the ruling prime ministers and finance ministers. In India, it is neither a convention and of course practically not possible because there are too many opposition parties in India. But in UK, largely what is it? Labour Party is in power today, and which party in opposition? Conservative Party in opposition. Relatively easy to form it in UK. And of course, as we told, largely UK is always what? Democracy based on conventions. Convention means what? So many things are based on practice. So that's why they can follow it. India, it's not so easy. Fine? Okay, so legal responsibility means what in simple terms? Means the respective minister has to additionally sign the signatures of whom? Of course, there, not the president, there whom? Crown. And so, and if you recall, what is the famous statement? UK follows the principle of king can do no wrong. In other words, if anything legally goes wrong, you can't, judiciary cannot question the king. You have to question whom? Respective minister. Because in India, we don't follow that concept of king can do no wrong because concept of king itself is not there and ministers need not countersign. Nobody will ask you to explain this, but that is the overall concept. No legal responsibility of minister in India. No cabinet system, no shadow cabinet in India. Though few people have recommended that India also should better if we follow shadow cabinet, but practically not so easy. Fine. Then what are the reasons India followed parliamentary system? Although thing is not necessary for us. From prelims perspective, what matters? If they ask you parliamentary system foundation was laid by which act? You have to choose which act? Government of India Act 1919. Again I am clarifying. If they ask you foundation of legislature is laid by which act? 1853 Act. If you recall your Charter Act of 1853, what do you call it? Not Charter Act, sorry, Councils Act of 1853. So that is the first, sorry, Charter Act is the Charter Act of 1853. That is the first act in which what is established? Legislature was established in India. And so which act? 19, yeah, exactly, not 1853 Act. Please write that. 18 again in acts we will discuss it again, but because the context came I am just clarifying it. 1853 Act, foundation for legislature laid in India. Foundation for legislature, concept of, if you recall, imperial legislature, later they call it as central legislature. Foundation for legislature in India. Fine. And this is also the act which allowed which one? Open competition allowed in covenanted services. 1853 Act, foundation for legislature in India. 2 is what? Open competition in covenanted services. Covenanted means largely take it as today's All India Service and Central Service. Because if you recall, Lord Cornwallis had established it. Open competition in covenanted services. In simple terms, open competition means who allowed? Indians allowed for the first time by 1853 Act. And later, 10 years later, who became? Satyendranath Tagore, if you recall, modern India, became the first Indian to clear open competition or first Indian to enter so-called covenanted services, the IAS or whatever required as the All India Service and Central Service of today's. Fine, that is Acts part, let's leave it separately. Then comes what? Your Government of India Act 1919. Provincial subjects divided into two. You recall? One is transferred subject, second one is reserved subject. Normally remember, logically you think transferred subject means transferred to whom? Transferred to Indian ministers who are answerable to legislature. Transferred subject handled by Indian ministers answerable to legislature. That is the foundation of parliamentary system. Indian ministers answerable to legislature. This answerable to legislature is nothing but what? Remember just now we discussed what is the most important feature of parliamentary system? Ministers answer exactly. That's why. So if they ask you which act laid the foundation for parliamentary system in India, which act? 1919 Act. Which act laid the foundation for legislature in India? 1853 Act. Both are a little different, keep it in mind. So reserved handled by whom? Reverse it. Handled by those ministers who are opposite, not answerable to legislature. And so reserved subjects were the most important ones, obviously, because why will the British give the important subjects to Indians? They'll keep them with themselves. Reserved subjects handled by those ministers, not answerable to legislature, opposite. Transferred means less important, reserved means more important subjects. And this concept itself is called as what? The division is called as diarchy. In modern India, that's a famous question. Diarchy scheme was introduced by which act? That's a very simple one. Normally UPSC doesn't ask that kind of easy questions as of today. Diarchy 1919 Act. Diarchy is nothing but foundation for parliamentary system. Why diarchy? Obviously very simple to understand. You are dividing it into two. Then again, if you recall, parliamentary system is already what? According to Supreme Court, parliamentary system itself is basic structure. Parliamentary system itself is basic structure. And then Swaran Singh Committee, NCRWC, that doesn't matter here, that's kind of your main topics. If in case you want, because you never know, they may give that kind of statements also as also in prelims. Just the keywords. Merits of parliamentary system. Of course, very basics of your Lakshmikant. You can just mention the keywords. First is obviously the biggest advantage. Collective responsibility. Two is what? Readily available government. 3. Coordination between legislature and executive. 4. Representation of India's diversity. Means ministers can belong to different backgrounds. Then next biggest advantage is what? Prevents concentration of power in one individual. Means like how in presidential system, who will have all the power? President. That will be prevented is what? Is a theoretically advantage. Doesn't mean always this will remain. So many dimensions are there for all this. Prevents concentration of power in one individual. Fine. Same way you reverse it. For every advantage you can write disadvantage actually. Now for example, when you say collective responsibility, what is the disadvantage for this? Or you write it as different one. Political instability, because any time they can pass no confidence motion against you and remove you out of power. Political instability. Unsure. 2. Dominance of ruling party in legislature. Dominance of ruling party in legislature. And so 3. PM government, or you can say prime ministerial government. Prime ministerial government means PM will become the most important person. Then rule by amateurs. Amateurs means what in simple terms? Non-subject matter experts. Means your minister may not have knowledge on their ministry. Next one, violates SOP. Not exactly violates, actually doesn't conform to violate SOP because of executive becoming part of legislature. right? And if they ask hybrid system, which country is famous hybrid system across the world? France is world's most famous hybrid system. Hybrid means what? It has features of both parliamentary and presidential. Some other countries are also there, but famously, even Sri Lanka to an extent is hybrid, but world's most famous is France. Hybrid. Then again, very basic ones. Federal system. Federal system. Again, let's go to the basics. What is the first one? What do you mean by unitary system? Obviously, what do you mean by unitary system? Only one level of government. Please note it down. All these will help you a lot in your last minute revision, because your normal foundation classes notes will be, if you go through it, how much will it be? Minimum 400, 500 page notes it will be. You can't revise that so easily at the time of exam, because so many detailedly we will discuss, detailed sentences, each and everything we will discuss there, because you guys will be in initial stage. Now, because you are already exposed to polity and all those ones, we don't discuss each and every single point, all of those things. Because already in normal classes to complete till here, I will take what? Minimum 10 classes I will take. So here within a span of 2.5 3 years, all done, because you already know all the basics. Fine, okay, unitary system, only one level of government. Even if what you have other level of government, what they doesn't have? No powers will be there. Understood? In other words, of course, the world's famous example, UK and most of the European countries, because always remember the core point is what? Whichever countries which are what? Geographically small, population is less, diversity is less, normally they prefer which one? Unitary system, because easy to handle. Sure, one level of government is more than enough. Now, when you say federal, what is the basic definition? Minimum 2 levels of government. Minimum 2 levels of government. Division of powers between national and regional government. Division of power between national and regional government, where? In written constitution itself. In written constitution itself. Fine. So in other words, if they ask that, again we'll come to it, but always remember this is the most important feature. This is the most important feature. Like in parliamentary system, as I told, what is the most important feature? Collective responsibility. This question also they have asked. The most important feature of federal system is division of power between whom and whom? National and regional level governments, and it is written where? I mean, yeah, it is clearly mentioned in the written constitution. That's why, remember in the beginning we told written constitution is not mandatory for democracy. It's not mandatory for constitutionalism, but it is mandatory for federalism. And short, if you want that statement also you write, written constitution is mandatory for federalism. You must and should have it. Written constitution mandatory for federalism. Written constitution is mandatory for federalism. Mandatory for federalism. Yeah, fine. And normally what is the point? In federal system, what is the logic? I mean, in the core point, national government always more powerful than regional government. They may give you these statements. The answer is yes. National government always more powerful than regional government. Obviously, what is the simple reason for it? If regional governments are more powerful, what you can't do? You cannot hold the country together. If country has to be united, national government should always have more power. How much more power than regional government? That varies. But it should have more power than regional government. Fine? National government should have always be more powerful than regional government. Yeah, then another one, in federal system what is not there? No right to secede for regional government. you will not have the right to secede. Of course, right to secede means what? Yeah, so you cannot get out of the country. No right to secede for regional government. No right to secede for the regional government. Right? Yeah, very basics first. Another one which normally we discuss, but not very important for prelims, but just keep it in mind. The concept of what? Of course, I mean, I forgot to mention the examples, which is very, very obvious, as I've already told multiple times. World's oldest federation, US, and then world's second oldest is also Canada, and then you can add India, Russia, Australia, so many ones. And obviously, names of the regional governments also vary. Again, very basics. In US and India, it's called as states. In Canada, it is called as, so Canada and Russia, it's called as provinces. In Russia, Canada and Australia, it's called as provinces. Russia, it's called as republic. In Switzerland, it is called as canton. But those are all not necessary. Just keep it in mind. Names of the regional government may vary. Which one next? Confederation. What is the reverse here? Regional government. Even here, what is it? First definition. Minimum 2 levels of government. That is the same. Minimum 2 levels of government. Regional governments more powerful. Regional governments are more powerful. 3 is what? Right to secede. Now obviously, logically you think if you allow right to secede, what will happen? Why will the group stay together? So that is the reason normally countries don't succeed as confederation. What are the examples for confederations? International organizations like UN, BRICS, SAARC, ASEAN, European Union, they are normally your confederations. European Union, BRICS, whatever, SAARC, ASEAN, SCO, whatever you call them as, they are your confederations. Right? Yeah, then overall take it. Features of federalism, just sum up quickly. What is the first feature? As we told, dual government, minimum 2 levels of government. Second feature, the most important feature, as I told, which one? Division of power between national and regional government. 3, where do you write it? Written constitution. That's why, as I said, written constitution is mandatory. 4, constitution has to be supreme. Both regional and national government should abide by constitution. Supremacy of constitution. 5, constitution has to be rigid. Rigid constitution, especially with respect to federal features. Then independent judiciary, because any conflicts between government and national government and regional government, who will solve? Judiciary will solve. Obviously, if you recall, any conflicts between states and between center and states in India is looked into by whom? Supreme Court, Article 131, original jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Then what you should have? Bicameralism, of course, not at state level. At state level, you may not have. That doesn't matter for us. Bicameralism at regional level. Sorry, bicameralism at national level. In other words, simple, you are referring to which one? Rajya Sabha. Rajya represent the interest of states. So most important is, always keep it in mind, this is the most important, the core characteristic. Right? Yeah, another statement just to keep it in mind here. Which one? If they ask, first point, federalism, what is it? Word nowhere mentioned in Constitution. Federal word is nowhere mentioned in Constitution. Unsure. So Article 1, recall, India is described as, again we'll discuss that in your next topic. India is described as what? Union of states. Again, when you say union of state, it means 2 provision. What is it? not formed as a result of treaty or agreement. If you recall, what is the basic definition of, recall the word federal is derived from a Latin word called as fidus. Fidus means agreement. Here, not formed as a result of agreement. That's why we don't use that word. It is not formed as a result of agreement. 2. You tell. No rights to secede. Short. But what is it? SR Bommai case. SR Bommai case 1994. You tell federalism is basic structure. Federalism is basic structure. SR Bommai case 1994. Right? Yeah, then of course, just to mention it, just put a small heading, descriptions of India's federalism. You never know. As far as I recall, they have not asked this kind of questions. In mains, it matters more. But whatever is important from prelims perspective, I will mention the types of federalism and everything. This is what descriptions. So, who described India as quasi-federal? If that's a very simple statement, case aware, not important so much because that kind of questions you can't expect. Sir Ivor Jennings, what is the question? Exactly. India is, or you can say directly, federation with strong centralizing tendency. Federation with strong centralizing tendency. Then, of course, types of majority, everything we'll discuss. If they are all very easy. Morris Jones. Morris Jones, a UK British scholar, he described it as what? That in India, what you have is bargaining federalism. In short, the next one, Paul Appleby, US Ford Foundation scholar, invited to India to study the Indian administration by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1950s. Extremely federal. Granville Austin, again US political scholar, according to him, India is what? Cooperative federalism. Unsure. So that I think 1 year that asked. Who described India as cooperative federalism? Granville Austin. He has written a very famous book called as Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation. So, but it doesn't matter much as of today. Cooperative federalism. SR Bommai, obviously we have already mentioned. Then Alexandrovic. He described India as what, if you recall the word? Sui generis model. Sui generis means what? What is it? Unique. Supreme Court Judge, Justice Beg. So what do you follow? Indian federalism is described as amphibian federalism. So obviously amphibian means what? That it can be federalism also as well as unitary also depending on the circumstances. Federal as well as unitary depending on circumstances. Fine. So these are various descriptions of federalism by various people. Now again, if in case just to, if you take it, maybe 1 year that has this question, entire federalism is based on the principle of, what do we call it as? Principle of subsidiarity. Federalism is based on the principle of subsidiarity. Based on the principle of subsidiarity. Yeah, what do you mean by subsidiarity in simple terms? See, you have government of India, I mean, let's take the government, the Indian angle itself, and then you have state government, and then you have local bodies. Principle of subsidiarity means what? See, normally what we used to do, powers were divided top down. So top down means what? Funds, resources, everything. Government of India used to keep as much as possible with themselves. Rest they used to give it to states. Then states will keep with themselves whatever possible. Then they will give it to local bodies. Obviously, if you look like that, obviously major power, major money, everything will remain with whom then? Center. Second highest with states, least with local bodies. That is what you call as centralized top-down development approach. Every decision, funds, everything you take at the top, then keep transferring it to the lower levels, they will just implement it. That is centralized top-down, pre-1991. This is pre-1991. You tell now what is principle of subsidiarity means then? Bottom-up means what? Functions have to be allocated first to whom? Lower level of bodies, then to state, then finally to government of India. In other words, first now they will check, let's say whatever issue is there, let's say defense is there, railways is there, water is there, sanitation is there, whatever it is, first what will they check? Can the local bodies handle this? If they can handle it, then the answer is what? Give it to them. If they can't handle it, then what do you have to check? Now can the states handle it? If the answer is yes, give it to them. If the answer is no, then give it to government of India. Earlier what I said, first government of India will decide how much can I handle. If I can't handle, then what they used to do? Give it to states. Then states will give it to local bodies. That led to what? Disempowerment of local bodies. They never used to have any power. That's why it's the opposite now. Yeah, in other words, please write the principle of subsidiarity means what? Bottom-up approach, foundation of federalism, because they give you these statements. Federalism is based on the principle of subsidiarity. Answer is yes. Or federalism supports the principle. Any statements they may ask. Bottom-up approach, principle of subsidiarity means A. B, what is it? Foundation for federalism or supports federalism. Any statements? Foundation of federalism. Then third, what is it? Subjects. Subjects means what? Functions, like railways is a subject, defense is a subject. Functions are first allocated to whom? First to whom? Local bodies, then to states, then finally to government of India. Subjects are first allocated, functions are first allocated to local bodies, then to the states, and finally national government. Subjects are first allocated to the local bodies, then to the states, finally to the national government, government of India. Answer. They may also ask this statement, principle of subsidiarity supports decentralization. Obvious answer is what? Yes, because decentralization means what? More powers given to whom? Lower levels. Even if they give it that statement also, please write. It supports decentralization. That is empowerment of local bodies, because they may give you this question linking it to panchayats and municipalities also. There also they may ask you saying that panchayats and local bodies are established based on the principle of subsidiarity. Don't get confused, that answer is also yes. So principle of, or it supports decentralization, that is empowerment of local bodies. Yeah, so these are few other ones. Then of course, normally these are the ones they ask, but if in case to keep it in mind, types of majority, another set of basics. Normally you will be knowing, but just to clarify, types of majority, on this they normally don't ask question, but just to keep it in mind. Absolute majority, first one. You tell what is the basic definition. Total strength of house Very basic maths. Total strength of the house by 2 plus 1. And so that's what is for Lok Sabha, it is 272. Majority government, if you want majority, but absolute majority in the house. Total strength of the house by 2 plus 1. Fine. Same. Second point you tell, simple majority. Number of members P and V present and voting by 2 plus 1. Number of members present and voting by 2 plus 1. Number of members present and voting by 2 plus 1. And what is it? Default majority is this. Default means what? If in case in the act or rules or constitution it is not clear which majority this particular issue should be or bill has to be passed or anything, automatically assume it is which majority? Simple majority. That's why it is by default majority. Assured. 9 out of 10 times any decision on the house, on the floor of the house happens through simple majority. Then comes effective majority. This is a kind of your prelims question. Effective majority. What does that mean? Total strength minus vacancy by 2 plus 1. When you say vacancy here, what all you have to include? Disqualification, to death, resign. In other words, what is not part? It does not include absency, because absency means you are an MP, you did not attend the house that day. A vacancy means what? You are no longer an MP. Includes disqualification, resignation, death. Disqualification, resignation, death. Fine? Yeah, where do they use effective majority? If in case you have looked at the words, because they may give you this statement. The statement is what? By the then existing members of the house. If they give you the statement, don't get confused. By the then existing strength of the house or members of the house is the word they use in the even in the constitution. By the then existing members of the house. By the then existing members of the house. By the then existing members of house. Answered. And where is it used? Exactly, famously, interlinking to a parliament chapter, removal of speaker, deputy speaker of Lok Sabha, Legislative Assembly. Same point, repeat. Chairperson, deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha, Legislative Council. Totally 8 people are removed by effective majority. That is the only context where we use this majority. Removal of speaker, deputy speaker, Lok Sabha, Assembly. Removal of chairperson, deputy chairperson, Rajya Sabha, Council. Chairperson, deputy chairperson, Rajya Sabha and Council. Speaker, deputy speaker, Lok Sabha and Assembly. Right? Speaker, deputy speaker, Lok Sabha, Assembly. Chairperson, deputy chairperson, Rajya Sabha, Council. Effective majority. So these 3 are the only majorities that we use. Anything other than these 3 we call it as what? Special majority. So special majority doesn't include only one. There are different types of special majority. Within that, one of the famous one is what? This is the most famous one. And where is this used? I mean, famously. Famously, this is used in amendment of Constitution under 368. But this is not the only special. You also have, if you recall, 2 by 3 of total strength of house. Recall and tell, where do we use this formula? 2/3 of the total strength of the house. Not present and voting, total strength of the house. Correct. Impeachment of president, Article 71. Sorry, Article 61. Impeachment of president, Article 61. So that is also a special majority. 2/3 of the total strength of the House. Impeachment of President, as I keep telling normally every time, the term impeachment can only and only be used for President. Everybody else you have to use the word removal, because head of the state, special position, and there is a kind of an inquiry involved, that's why the word impeachment. Everybody else, Supreme Court judge, High Court judge, Chief Election Commissioner, whatever, removal. You can't, even Prime Minister for that matter, removal. You can't use the term impeachment for others. Right? This is types of majority. And then ratification, everything, we'll discuss it later. Now, just to mention, this is actually main topic, but just put the subheading there. Features of strong center, or what you call as quasi-federalism. Very simple, quickly sum up. Greater legislative financial powers to center. Greater legislative and financial powers to center. 2. Single citizenship. Single constitution. Emergency. Amendment to the constitution, because it can be only done by Parliament. Governor's office. Integrated judiciary, audit, elections, all India services. Lot of these are your written strong center. Governor's office, all India services, integrated judiciary, integrated audit, integrated election. All of them will get repeated in respective chapters. We'll discuss in detail. The CAG related details, election related details. Fine. If in case, because we don't know, we'll come back to that or not. Just mention it. Government of India. Accounts, CGA. CGA is what kind of body? CGA is a statutory body. What is CGA? Controller General of Accounts. Audit, CAG. CAG is what? Article 148, 149. That means what kind of body? Constitutional body. States, CAG handles both. Both means accounts and audit. And obviously, you know, another few basics. US follows dual constitution, dual citizenship. Or again, in citizenship, we will discuss that again. Elections again we will discuss separately. Integrated judiciary again we will discuss separately. Fine. And then symmetry, asymmetry, we will not discuss it as a main topic, but under that there are so many prelims topics, we will discuss that. So we call symmetric federalism. Of course, very basic definition you tell. What is symmetric federalism? Regional governments treated equally. Simple definition. Regional governments treated equally. Means they'll have same kind of powers, they'll have same kind of limitations, checks and balances, everything. So what is the best example? India is also there, but world's famous symmetry is US. India also follows it with respect to general category states. Special category states are largely other ones, backward and everything we follow what? Opposite. Asymmetry. In asymmetry there are a lot of prelims topics, that's why I am just mentioning it now. Asymmetric federalism, just the opposite definition. Different regional governments treated differently, specially. considering their strengths, weakness, backwardness, whatever. Different regional governments treated differently. Of course, in so many countries they follow it, but world's famous or successful model for federalism, I mean asymmetric, is India. And India's model of federalism is largely inspired by which model? Canadian model of federalism. And sure, India doesn't follow US model, India largely follows Canadian model. Like what? Like residuary powers given to states, center, all of those things, union of states, all of them. All of them will come back, don't worry. Sure. Now here, what are the prelims points that you have to keep it in mind? Sure, 370 is taken away, you forget about it. 371, examples of asymmetry or rating. But look at it from prelims perspective. 371 itself is your return. Asymmetric federalism. You tell 371 for whom? Special status for backward states or special status for few states, you tell. Reasons will mention. Special status or special provisions for few states or regions, sometimes part of states also. Of course, I mean the first one is what? Karnataka itself, because normally it has been given for states. In Karnataka they have given it for a region. Special provisions for few states and region. First, grounds. On what grounds? Why do they give it? Of course, you tell what will be the grounds. First one, exactly, backwardness, or to be more precise, social economic backwardness, but backwardness. First major ground is backwardness. 2, law and order situation. Example, Nagaland, Manipur kind of a one. Law and order situation. 3, cultural distinctiveness, cultural speciality. Again, mostly the northeast states. Cultural differences. 4, what? Demands of local people. Largely again northeast states. Again, these kind of details, everything is not there in constitution, but these are the grounds. Fine. Now, who gives it? Who gives it? 371 means what? You have to amend the constitution. That means by whom? Given by parliament. Which majority? Same. Just now what we wrote? By special majority. You have to amend the constitution by special majority. Again, if you have a doubt, what is it? No need of ratification. If in case you have that doubt, remember constitutional amendment, majority 50% of ratification of states. Here, no need of ratification of states. Means, when 98th constitutional amendment provided 371J for Hyderabad, Karnataka, who did not agree, or whose permission was not required for it? Karnataka's permission is not required for it. No need of ratification of states. It's just special majority of parliament, that's it. Given by parliament, special majority, no need of ratification of states. Fine? Yeah, this is as a concept, as a fact if you want now. Quick. Don't assume that because lot of, obviously these are all prelims points, lot of it will be there in your class note. Those who are, assuming because a lot of cases, one or other way, part of OGP, I can recall that. Don't assume that is anyhow there in notes, please don't use that logic because you can't revise that at the end. It's already 500 page bulky note. Just look at your prelims note. Your OGP classes notes. It's not so easy. It is very good, but no doubt about it. Because a lot of these you will find it there also. In fact, it will be more there. But what you can't do that. Last minute, let's say prelims is 5 days down the line. Obviously, what will you feel psychologically? I should revise prelims once now. POLITY once now. If you start Lakshmikant or if you start your class note because you guys are giving, if in case you are giving first or second attempt, because Lakshmikant, if you have read 15-20 times, you can revise it in one day. But can you revise it 15-20 times if you are giving first attempt prelims? Is it possible practically? Impossible, obviously no. In your libraries, you go and look at their Lakshmikant note. What is it? It's already front and back, everything is gone. Already would be torn. They can revise it because they would have already studied it minimum 15-20 times. They can tell you page by page also. In Lakshmikant, in this chapter, left side you have this column, right side you have this column, right side I have this and this. They can say that because they have already revised so many times. They can directly do it. But you guys, when you are writing faster ones, if you don't have short notes, it's very, very difficult to revise at the end. And this entire exam, both prelims and mains, depends on revision. How many number of times you can revise, proportionate to your marks. Less number of times you revise, less is your marks. It's as simple as that. That's why it has to be as consolidated, as short as possible. And short, our intention is to finish it in less than 100 sheets. So that everything you can finish it as quickly as possible. That's why I'm not even telling you sentences here. Look at just keywords you have to mention. Quick revision has to be there. Fine. Okay, fine. So no need of ratification of states. Then 371 is for whom? Maharashtra, Gujarat. 371A. Nagaland. B. Assam. C. Manipur. D and E. Andhra, Telangana. F. 36th Amendment 1975. Sikkim. G. Mizoram. H. Arunachal Pradesh. I. Goa. J. Hyderabad, Karnataka. 98th Amendments 2012. So 371 this is. And so amendment of the Constitution under 368 by special majority. (370) is also an example, obviously. 370 we need not discuss now, it's already not deleted. I have told multiple times. What is it only? Abrogated. It's there in the Constitution. No, it doesn't have any value. You can't implement it. It's abrogated. Fine. Yeah, then another what do you call this, from asymmetric federalism, what matters to your prelims? 5th schedule and 6th schedule, we'll discuss it separately or as an example. Okay, you know that. Again, we'll discuss it on the schedules. Which one? Special category status. Outdated concept today, doesn't matter much, but just again a factual matter. So outdated special category status. First point is what? Not mentioned in Constitution. It's not there in Constitution. Then who recommended it? Recommended by Finance Commission. Recommended by Finance Commission. Who is to give it? Given by NDC, National Development Council. Now what is the criteria? What is largely the criteria? A. International borders. Sharing the international border. B. Tough geography. Geographical terrain is very difficult. 3. Low state GDP. Then infrastructure backwardness. Infrastructure backwardness. Some you can also include high ST population. Largely this is your which one? Criteria for special category stated. Doesn't mean always they followed it, because Telangana is an exception. Of course, the status is given for what? 8 northeast states, means which includes Sikkim plus, actually we used to tell 3 Himalayan states, now 2 Himalayan states, because this status has to be given only for states, and what Jammu Kashmir is not. Jammu Kashmir is what rather than Union Territory, so Jammu Kashmir is removed. Plus, what is the extra? Telangana. Infrastructural backwardness, high ST population. 8 northeast states plus Himachal plus Uttarakhand plus Telangana. Special category status. Fine. If you recall, what are the advantages of special category status? Core advantage is what? Financial. Advantages. Yeah. More grants from Government of India. The Government of India will give you more grants. 2. Greater share in externally funded projects, means World Bank funded project, most importantly. Greater share in external projects or external aided projects. out of those World Bank projects and everything. 3, that is what? Tax discount or tax incentives for companies. Means whoever agreed to work in these states, so most of the central taxes, that is your corporate tax, customs duty, GST for that matter, can be reduced. Tax incentives for the companies working in these states. Greater share in externally aided projects. This is your special category status. Another one, kind of recently, kind of current affairs also in news, because remember ILP, again for what is it? Not in Constitution. It's not there in the Constitution. Then who introduced it? British introduced it. Ensured. Which act if you recall? Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act. Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act. Because at that time the entire northeast was under so-called Bengal province. Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act. Ensured. Which states have ILP today? Recall the easternmost. Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram. And which is the new state? Manipur is newly added. Manipur is newly added. Of course, who will add all those things? Government of India, Home Ministry. If you have the doubt, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India will add a state to this ILP. What are the advantages if you recall? The name is as ILP. That means if you want to, if an outsider have to enter here, you need a permit. You can't settle there permanently, no business, no religious activities, no property, nothing. Ensured. Yeah, now if you recall the current affairs angle, recently just December 1st week, what was in news? Protected area permit was in news if you recall. Kind of related to it because with respect to which state? Nagaland. Recall in Nagaland they are conducting which one? This Hornbill festival, and protected area permit puts very strict restriction for what do you call this, in these 4 states if you want to enter. This is protected area permit is not for Indians, this is for foreigners if they have to come to India. So understood, protected area permit applies same to these 4 states, and if you want to enter these states as a foreigner, what do you need? Special permit, and rules are very strict, and that's why what Nagaland opposed it. Obviously on what reason Nagaland it opposed? If the rules are strict, more number of foreigners will come, less will come. Less will come. And now for Nagaland, what is the major tourist attraction? Hornbill festival is a major tourist attraction. That's why what is their contention? If you, because your rules are strict, foreign now less number of foreigners will come. That means more tourism, less tourism. Less tourism, less economic development, less employment. So that's why they oppose it in a way, Nagaland. That is the reason if you recall just 2-3 days back, Ministry of Home Affairs said that with respect to this Hornbill festival, we will make the rules easier, and so that more foreigners can come and attend the Hornbill festival. That is the concept of what? Same concept, but this is for Indians, that is for foreigners. Protected area permit. Again for which states? Same states. Again who has to give permission? Same. Ministry of Home Affairs. Recently which state in news? Nagaland with respect to Hornbill festival. Sure. Okay, we'll discuss all of them, we'll come back again. And then 5th schedule, 6th schedule, we'll discuss it separately again. And then you also have to discuss, there's still so many types, under cooperative, again, under cooperative, competitive, confrontational, I will not discuss it as a mains topic. So I will discuss it as what? Take it from prelims perspective, which states, what is the example, from that prelims perspective only we'll discuss. We'll not discuss it from a mains aspect saying that how to write a mains answer, that's not the focus here. Fine. There's still so many, and of course after Federalism chapter we'll discuss some PVQs also, and then we'll continue. So we'll end it for now, and then we'll come back to your afternoon session by maybe 2 hours. So if you come by 2:30 or 3, okay, let's make it as 3. So come back by 3, it will be from 3 to 6. Do you guys, if you are still attending optionals or what? If you are attending optional, what time is optional? 5 o'clock. Where? In insides? Acha. Okay, fine. That we can't, Adhan, you can't accommodate here. Okay, so 3 to 6. I thought of making it 2:30, but I think it will be a little early. 3 to 6. It may stretch till 6:30 also, I don't know. So depends. Yeah, every day same timings. Morning one session, afternoon one session, on an average 3 plus 3, 6 hours will be there. And if maybe at the last 5th and 6th day it may stretch to 7 hours, 8 hours also. Depends. Because you have to quickly sum up everything. I'm sure because you have to discuss PVQs also, all those ones. Yeah, fine. So come back by 3 o'clock, probably here itself same, or else they'll put it in the group. As of today, assume here itself.